Hi guys, before I start the video, I just want to give a big thank you to Erica from the Children's Craniofacial Association. She took some time out of her day to participate in the interview, and I really appreciate it for sharing her story and her position at the association as well. Additionally, there is a 10 to 20-second time frame in the beginning of the video where the video just randomly cuts out, so I just want to alert you guys about that too, but I hope you guys enjoy the interview. To get started, just thank you so much for being here. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey, both personally and with the Children's Craniofacial Association?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my name is Erica Klauber, and I'm our Executive Director of Children's Craniofacial Association. And I really came to this path as a patient first. When I was growing up, I had soft, fleshy tumors that would show up on the inside of my mouth. They started around 18 months to 2 years old. And my mom would just take me to dentists and oral surgeons, and they would cut them off or cauterize them, and then they would come right back. And so that really started the journey of not knowing what we were dealing with, but my mom was very diligent. And as I always like to say, we were so fortunate that she had good insurance, that she could keep seeking a second opinion. And, she had the resource to go to all these different doctors. But unfortunately, none of them knew what was going on. So it was kind of just whack-a-mole with what was popping up, literally. And so it wasn't until I was graduated from college and I was living in Tuscaloosa at the time, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, that I met a board member just incidentally. And he said, "Oh, I volunteer with this organization, Children's Craniofacial Association. What craniofacial syndrome do you have?" And I was like, "Well, I've never heard that question asked that way. It was usually like, oh, did you just have dental work or what's wrong with your face?" Um, and I was like, I don't know what that word is. And so he introduced me to the association and he said, you're going to meet some great people. You can have a list of doctors provided to you. And through CCA, I found the surgeon that ultimately did what I consider my first very, very successful surgery. He was able to open up my jaw, which before had like 2.5 millimeters of opening. So I was really struggling through life, but Dr. Fioran in Dallas, Texas happened to be the surgeon that I went with, and it was great. And I got 10 amazing years with no recurrence or no other symptoms. And now, as an adult, we talk about the adult population. I do have some recurrence of symptoms, but it's, now I know I can plug into this community and I can talk to people about who are my age, who are having similar experiences or who are going through it, who are looking for doctors. And I also have found this wonderful network of doctors who are so willing, if they say, I can't treat what you have, go to this person. And it's this very smart referral because they know who's doing what in the craniofacial community, and they treat the whole person, not just one symptom that pops up. A craniofacial surgeon really is able to work with a team of providers, orthodontists, neurosurgeons, etc., to provide the most comprehensive care. And that's how I got to CCA. Started volunteering with them, and then I said, I just can't be away from this group of people. They're too caring, they're too amazing. Started as part-time staff, worked up to full-time staff, and then eventually took over as executive director when our wonderful 27-year tenure executive director retired.
That's wonderful. I'm happy that you were able to find like a connection and network of like physicians who are willing to help you. But before all of that, when you were growing up with a facial difference, what were some of the earliest moments that shaped how you saw yourself and how others saw you?
This one can be really tough. I think one of the earliest moments that sticks out is I was at probably a vacation Bible school situation. I grew up in the South. It wasn't terribly rural, but it was suburban for sure. And I was at this vacation Bible school, and I was with my friend, and I noticed it was a visiting situation. It wasn't like my home church or whatever. And the educator was saying, "What's wrong with your friend? Is she okay? Does your friend need this crayon? Does your friend need this?" And it was just so funny. I was like, um, "Can I have the pink crayon?" And I didn't really understand why she was not talking to me. And it's because she perceived there was a cognitive disability, which she didn't ask, she didn't assess, she just assumed because I had a facial difference that I was somehow dependent and not independent. And I think that really stunned me because I was young, but I picked up on it pretty quickly. Um, and that was tough because, no one should be treated like that. Even people with cognitive disabilities deserve to be addressed and spoken to. So, lots of education needed to happen there for sure. But it shaped the fact that, oh, people see me differently. They see me so differently that they think I can't even do a craft on my own. And then I think another formative moment was just all the times that people came up and said, "What's wrong with your face?" And again, in the grand scheme of things, I have a relatively mild condition. It was usually limited to my lips and my chin. And so for people just to be so bold with such a harsh question, I was always very surprised that people felt comfortable asking that question, especially of a child. There's definitely ways to inquire, and we understand that other children are curious and have questions, but hopefully in the work we're doing, we're educating people a little bit better way to be curious, not condescending.
Yeah, kind of related to your response, there are a lot of misconceptions about people with facial differences. So, based on your own experience, what are some that stand out to you? Like, you already talked about how people associate facial differences with like cognitive abilities, but are there any other ones that challenge people with facial differences?
Absolutely. I think people somehow think we're living a different human experience. And while we do have some perspective that not everyone else has, we are living the same human experience. We have all of the same desires as anyone else. We want to have careers, we want to do well in school, we want to have families or at least partnerships and meaningful relationships. These are all the same things that any other person wants. We're not somehow other or different. A big misconception is that, portrayed mostly in the media, is that people with scarring or facial differences are the villains or are evil or acquired it in some catastrophic cosmic consequence, which is just not true. Genetic mutations happen, injuries and accidents happen. And syndromes, genetic syndromes are also just a part of the makeup, and we are humans who just happen to look a little bit differently. And I wish we could somehow get others to understand that we're just like you. We just happen to have a facial difference, and that's the biggest one we're trying to dispel. But we have all sorts of different abilities, just like any other range or group of humans you might meet. We have some people who are amazing athletes. We have poets, writers. We have some great musicians coming through that I've had the opportunity to witness and see their musical careers grow. So we have all the same span and range of experiences that others have.
Yeah, people make a lot of assumptions about independence, intelligence, or even the ability to have like relationships with other people. So, what would you want others to understand about the real lives of people with facial differences?
I would want them to understand that it's pretty much something that you go through. You go through feeling at times not as confident as you would like to be. We just have to put in the work to overcome that, and we learn pretty early on how to put ourselves out there. And as long as we have, great caregivers who can help us continue to do that and build that resilience, we're going to learn that lesson early on. And I think a lot of people have to learn the lesson that outward appearance is not everything for multiple different reasons. As some people, it's just as common as aging. When things start looking different, you have to remember that you are who you are from your mind, body, and soul. It's not just the outward appearance. But yeah, I think that's what it becomes in a way, it becomes a burden that becomes a superpower. We have to learn the lesson early, but then we're able to go forward with that in our lives, knowing that we can present ourselves in a way to the world where we can be understood and heard.
All right, you've chosen to be a voice and an advocate. So, what exactly inspired you to step into that role? Was there like a specific moment, or was it just in general?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Going very deep, I think inside me there is this need to right wrongs. It's just there. It was there from early on. Going back to some of those early experiences, I remember in particular standing on a piece of playground equipment telling my peers some important message that I had to get out. So I think that's been in me for a while. It was kind of factory installed, as they say. But I definitely struggled a lot just growing up. And when I found this community, I said, they are doing exactly what I needed as a kid. I needed some group of people to validate my experience, to take me in, to accept me not as other. And when I found this community, I said, I just have to help them in any way possible. And as a born helper or a born advocate, the role was just perfectly suited to what I wanted to do with my life's work. So I am incredibly fortunate and privileged, I realize, to like get to do what I love and I'm so passionate about. And I hope that I do that well for our community.
That's amazing. Seems like the way you're passionate about it, I bet you are doing it amazing for your community. Now I'm just going to segue a little bit into kind of the work you do at the association. So, for the people who might be hearing about CCA for the first time, what is the core mission for the organization?
Our mission is to support and inspire individuals and families affected by facial differences. And we did just update that. We really want to focus on supporting and inspiring. So the support we offer is financial assistance for medical travel. As I discussed in my own personal journey, a lot of times you have to travel to see different doctors or specialists, and they might not be right in your hometown. So we offer financial assistance for families who need food, travel, lodging costs that insurance doesn't cover. And then we also want to support in other ways, whether it's educationally, by providing quality educational materials to families who can then pass it on to their schools, and also just support in the emotional sense of it. Having a community, we know that a lived experience community significantly changes the outcomes for people. If you have somewhere to go where you're understood and accepted, it completely can change your life's trajectory. So that's the support. And then we want to inspire. We want to inspire people to know that there's no limit to what they want to do. Yes, you may have to work within the confines of your medical challenges. Some people have fairly significant ones, and they spend a lot of time working on their physical health. And so we want them to know that even with those challenges, there's so many different lives they could lead. And so we really work to put voices out, not only on social media and YouTube, but just to show the various lives that people can live, and how they can thrive even with the facial difference or a genetic syndrome.
That's awesome. So, to my understanding, the CCA often says that craniofacial differences can both be really rare and also surprisingly common. So, could you help us understand what that might mean in real life?
Absolutely. So one of the most common birth defects, that's the word that the medical community uses, is cleft lip and palate. It occurs in 1 in 750 live births. So that's very common. And it has a standard of care, a protocol of repairing that cleft, lip and or palate. And so that's very common. Even though that one is really well known, it still requires a significant amount of medical intervention. And then, likewise, there are some that occur in 1 in 20,000 or 1 in 50,000 births. So those are quite rare, and those are things like Apert syndrome or Treacher-Collins syndrome, which are genetic mutations that can be either spontaneous or hereditary. And so we really represent the full spectrum of that, I guess, occurrence at our community. So, and another common one that a lot of people have seen, but maybe they don't know what it is craniosynostosis, and that occurs in 1 in 2,500 births. So still pretty common in the grand scheme, and that's when the bones of the skull are fused prematurely within the first year of life, and babies usually have an operation and then wear a helmet to correct that. And so you can see how it can be one of these things that occurs fairly frequently and has a standard of care, or it can be one that's so individualized like my own that doesn't even fit within a syndrome.
All right, I see. Thank you for explaining that. So, what are some current advocacy efforts the CCA is involved in? I remember talking about the ELSA Act or Facial Equality Week. Why are they so important in this community?
These things are so important, and thank you for asking. The advocacy that we have to do as a community is just one extra step that it's a fight that we want the community to join in with us because we believe it will actually help everyone. First and foremost, the ELSA Act is the Ensuring Lasting Smiles Act, and that's to mandate that insurance companies cover the dental work that is a part of craniofacial care. A lot of times people, especially as they get older, they'll need to have teeth removed or they'll need to have orthodontia to prepare their jaws or their mid faces, which is right here, for the surgery that they need to have. But before they can do that, they need to get the teeth in place. And a lot of times insurance companies are refusing to cover that. We really need that to be part of the comprehensive standard of care that insurances provide. So we are working with the coalition that's trying to get the ELSA Act passed. And I think you can go and look up the ELSA Act where it is right now in the Congress because it keeps getting introduced and then it doesn't make it out of committee. So it's had some great momentum, but I think right now it might be back in committee. So we'll be able to link to that, I think, if people want to learn more about the ELSA Act. But everyone can write their congressmen and their representatives and legislators and ask them to vote yes on that when it comes up for their vote. Another thing is Face Equality Week, and I love Face Equality International. It's a global alliance, and they are really positioning facial difference as a human rights issue. They have tons of research and statistics on how people with facial differences are discriminated against. And this includes everything from birthmarks, vascular malformations, to these syndromes that I mentioned. And so I love the work that they're doing on Face Equality Week, which is the second week in May. They are saying, we're here. We do not accept the discrimination. We want the media to stop presenting us as villains. Another hot topic right now that they're taking on is AI and facial recognition. People are, not being able to scan into things, or they're being just so many things that everyone worries about with AI and facial recognition. It's heightened for people with facial differences. So taking a look at Face Equality International and the work that they are doing is just incredible because they're really pushing that advocacy forward. And CCA, while we are a patient support organization, we do like to help amplify the advocacy that's going on because it's so important.
I see. Thank you for explaining that. How does the CCA use storytelling, collaboration, and digital platforms such as like Instagram or like LinkedIn to amplify these messages and create change?
Absolutely. This is such a powerful tool. We know that when people see and hear our differences, they can understand them. If they if they are able to experience someone who looks very different from them, talk about their life, their passion, their hobby, their sport, their music in a 30-second clip, it breaks down that natural tendency of our brains to stereotype and stigmatize. We are fighting biological responses. Our brains categorize and they react to things for our own evolutionary safety. So we understand that when a brain sees something different, it's like, whoa, pause, figure this out. But by putting these stories on social media, it gives people the opportunity to have exposure to people with facial differences before they're out in the wild. And so they can understand, oh, some people look different. And just like we've all, become more accustomed to different, I don't know, music styles or dress or things like that because we see it and then we want to emulate it, quite honestly, on social media. We can become more accustomed and accepting of people who look different with different physical features. So that's our goal. And then again, just to inspire, not only to inspire our community, which is our first priority, but to inspire the world that whatever your difference is, whatever your perceived that makes you feel like you're not enough, you can do that same work that we're doing to find our self-worth and to find that confidence to put ourselves out there.
I see. Thank you. I'm gonna move on a little bit to like kind of questions regarding moving forward and empowering others. To my understanding, September is Craniofacial Acceptance Month, and Face Equality Week is in May. So, what do these periods mean to you personally? And again, why are they important to the wider community?
It is just such a great time to put ourselves out there. We gear up, we resource up, and we say, okay, this is the time when we're prepared and ready and excited, and all together we're saying we're here. Because individually it can be tiring to go to the grocery checkout line, to go to the DMV and answer these questions every day. But during these specified periods, we come together as a community and we have media kits and toolkits, and we have press releases, and we're just really prepared, and we're amped up for the battle, as you will. We're ready to go out and put that word out there. So during those periods, we can be celebratory in our community, and it's such a refreshing time for us to come together to celebrate who we are and our shared connections, and use that time to educate the public in mass. So it's a really great time. We love coming together. We do Craniofacial Acceptance Month towards the beginning of the school year. So hopefully that we have a lot of picnics across the country. We have some, art events, things like that. Face Equality Week, they do a lot of like paint nights. So you can paint your own self-portrait or interpretive self-portrait. That's usually towards the end of the traditional school year. So kind of just highlighting at the beginning and the end of these school academic times of coming through and learning and growing, that it's really something we can celebrate. It can be a very tough journey, and I don't want to take that away from anyone, but when the community rallies together, we can see the good in it, and we can help other people also embrace their own differences.
That's nice. I didn't know that you guys had picnics and stuff. That sounds really sweet and fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. So with your experiences, with your own facial difference and as part of the CCA, what message would you want to give to a young person who might be feeling isolated or misunderstood because of their facial difference?
I would first and foremost say you're not alone. Like, you may feel like you are the only person ever to walk this path. And I just want them to know you're not. And not only are you not alone, there's so many different people. Find a group. CCA is not the only one. We would love them to plug into CCA, and we will try to match you with someone at the same age, the same syndrome, the same geographic region. But just know that you're not alone, and that you will find radical acceptance, and it's got to start from within. So start accepting and loving yourself. And that's so much easier said than done. But sometimes the easiest way to do that is find somebody that already loves themselves, and spend an afternoon with them. That is what it is. It's about connection. One of my favorite quotes is, the antidote to trauma is connection. And the trauma that someone has experienced going through living with the facial difference, whether it's bullying, whether it's medical trauma, the way to fix that is connection. And sometimes that can be forged first online, socially, digitally, and then heighten that by getting in spaces with people with differences. And again, it doesn't have to necessarily be the same facial difference as you, but find a community. There's so many different communities of people living with limb differences, of people with mobility differences. Those are the things that are really going to help you cultivate that love of yourself. And if somebody's really isolated, I mean, I started with books, and then I went on to documentaries. So one just freebie out there is, if you watch a lot of the documentaries about athletes who have been in injuries and things like that, that's one of my favorite ways. If you're just needing a confidence boost or a life boost, I love to watch some of the documentaries about athletes who have suffered great injuries and come back from that, because their bodies were taken from them and were changed, which is an experience we sometimes feel as people with facial differences. They had to go a lot of medical intervention, and then they have found a way to come back and live life on different terms. And so if you're very isolated and it's hard to connect, that's one way that's kind of passive, but it always gives me a big booster shot to watch something like that.
That's great advice. I love that. I never thought about like watching documentaries on like sports injuries. That sounds interesting. This is gonna be the last question. So, finally, for those watching who want to be better allies or advocates, what are some practical ways that they can show support or just get involved?
Awesome. Thank you for this question. I think one of the ways that you can get involved is just to look up some of our resources on, how to ask questions and how to talk to people. We have some preferred language. We prefer facial difference community, rather than deformity. Those are such simple things. I know when I'm out and about and somebody says facial difference, I'm like, I like you. I know you know. And that just is such a great feeling to know that someone else has kind of done a little bit of effort, put a little bit of effort out there to make me feel comfortable. Another thing is just really get to know people on a person to person basis who have facial differences. Follow them on their social medias, learn about their lives, support whatever artistry they're doing. That's always a great way to do it if you don't know anyone particularly. And then just know that you can strike up conversation with someone who looks different. And there's a way to do that. And that really increases social connection and alliance. It makes you more of an ally when you can talk to someone and share a meal with them or share coffee with them, or just, you're sitting in class and you're like, hey, after we're walking out of this class, do you want to tell me a little bit about, your life? And you don't have to mention, their facial difference. But if you say your life, that's probably going to come up. So it's good to just be, kind of the basics of being a friend is a way to be an ally. And then there's definitely deeper resources out there for people who want to understand and unpack ableism. I think that's always a great way to go about it, because that affects so many people, not just people with facial differences. And then following the organizations that are out there doing the advocacy work is a great way to be an ally. Of course, if you have resources, donate to those that feel meaningful to you, that are making a meaningful change. And yeah, just staying involved and watching things like your channel are a great way to be an ally.
Specifically for the ELSA Act, is there anything that the viewers can do to kind of help in that effort?
Yes, I need to look that up. It's the NFED. I believe it's nfed.org. I need to look that up. But I think going to that page, they have a whole page on the ELSA Act, and it will say exactly where it is at whatever point in time someone is watching this. And it will have instructions on how to contact your either representative or senator. Because I think right now it's back in committee. So you would be contacting the people that are in support of this bill, the sponsors of this bill. So contacting the sponsors, voicing your support of this bill. And then once it makes it out of committee, then you want to call your actual state legislators. And it usually starts in the House or the Senate and then would pass the opposite way. So again, I apologize for not being totally up on this bill right now. I just know it's like I said, it's been in and out of committee. So maybe we can link to that page. And then again, just calling the people who are on the committee to voice your support. And when it gets out of committee, calling where you're a constituent of. Because as everyone likes to, or as everyone should know, your constituency is the most important thing when contacting a legislator. They really like to listen to the people who are in their districts. So that's where it's really, really going to matter. But getting it out of committee, we have some great people working on that. And it never, ever, ever hurts to call the people working on that, even if you're not in their district, to show them that there's nationwide support for this bill.
That's incredible. Yeah, I'll definitely do a little bit of research on that and like put that link on my page. But yeah, other than that, do you have anything you want to add on?
Oh man, I just want to thank your audience and thank you for doing this work. It's so great to get to talk to people who are otherwise maybe have never heard of facial differences or craniofacial syndrome. So thank you for listening and watching and just caring. It's such an important part of the work we do to tell the general public about facial differences.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciated your time. I feel like this was an amazing interview. I definitely learned a lot. So I hope some of the people also learned.
Thank you. Me
Yeah.
too.